So part one, we went through using a blanket as bedding, using blankets as a wool blanket as a coat. We talked about bulk, density, and fluff, the qualities to look for in a blanket, and the other considerations that would go around a blanket in terms of those heat loss mechanisms, conduction, convection, radiation, respiration, and evaporation. So, what we didn't talk about is why a wool blanket. And I'm just an average guy. I've got a day job. I don't make my livelihood from teaching bushcraft or anything like that, but I'm just going to explain now why and what I do with a wool blanket and why I like it when going out in the woods. And that is going minimalist. So I can really reduce my weight by not taking a sleeping bag and creating from the natural environment my shelter, among other things. So I'm going to make a backpack out of my blanket right now, but I'm going to show you a couple things before I do that. If you really want to go minimalist, that may mean not taking a jacket as well. I showed you how to wear a wool blanket in part one. So if you were going to wear this as well as use it as your bedding, how are you going to carry your possibles and stuff? So one of the things that I have done is when I make my wool blanket pack, I'll actually take one of these ultralight backpacks. They even have just cheap giveaway backpacks too that you can use. But you load that with your possibles. If you really want to go multi-use, you can actually make carrying devices out of other things, such as this is a shemagh, and a lot of people like these because they wear them, so you're really going multi-use. But I carry one of these too because I can actually make a basket out of it. I think it's called furoshiki, and that's the Japanese art of folding cloth. So I'm just going to show you a neat little trick if you want to carry a shemagh, where you can make a device to carry your possibles while you're wearing your wool blanket. Hopefully you can see me doing this. So I folded this diagonally, tying 2 knots in the corners. Now I'm going to spin it around inside out, put the knots inside, and tie this up. And I have made, which you'll find hard to believe, a very large basket. So if I wanted to carry all my belongings in this, I could do so. And I can even lock it down and tighten it up by wrapping it. So here's a way you can carry your belongings if you're going to wear your wool blanket. And it's a multi-use item, piece of cloth. By the way, you can make a fanny pack out of these if you're not carrying a whole lot of stuff, so if you're doing a day trip away from your camp, just a very versatile having a piece of cloth. So now I'm going to show you how to actually roll this up into a blanket pack. So I've got a pot in here, I've got my water bottle, I would stick other stuff in here, some extra clothes, my food, etc. And actually, this is the bottom. I also have in here a ground cloth and a piece of mylar. The other thing in terms of going, or a space blanket, the other things in terms of going minimalist in a solution like this, I've got to have fire. I cannot not have fire if I'm foregoing a sleeping bag. It doesn't matter if the temperatures are freezing or below freezing. I can get away with a wool blanket if I create a shelter and I make fire. The mylar or space blanket is helpful in that regard. So here's how you turn this into a backpack. I've folded it in thirds. Again, the last fold, this is my bottom. And I want to roll this up fairly tight. It doesn't have to be perfectly tight. And this is where a military type blanket can come in handy, trying to minimize the debris your blanket will pick up. And then when I get towards the end, what I'll do is I'll open this up a little bit, and then I will roll my blanket into the end, creating somewhat like a pocket. So this is my bottom. Now I'll take a piece of rope. This happens to be paracord. This could actually be my ridge line, and a lot of people just do an overhand knot to form a loop. I like making a bowline so I can untie it. And then what I'll do is feed it through, and I will do a slippery hitch right here, and then I will lock that slippery hitch down, and then I'll come halfway down the blanket, tighten that, come towards the bottom, same thing, go across the bottom, feed it through, feed it through, feed it through. Now at this point, this is the top. I want to get in here and get my water bottle, which I left in my Shemagh. I've got my water bottle in here, but this is where I like to tie down my poncho. And I want my poncho on top so I can get to it if it starts raining. This is also my tarp. So this is my shelter as well. I'm trying to minimize what I'm carrying. Here's my loop that I locked down earlier. Same thing. Little slippery hitch. And I can lock that down. Hello, Scout. And then I can just tuck my excess rope somewhere. Now for the backpack straps. I've actually tried using 550 cord for this and made a daisy chain out of it. Doesn't work so well. It actually hurts. This is a seat belt, and you want to find the middle. Excuse me. You want to find the middle, and I'll go underneath here, underneath here, sometimes these want to cross, so just let it do that. And you can figure out your gauge over time. A lot of people, it'll be an arm length or so. And I'm just going to tie a quick overhand knot. That's what I usually do the first time anyway. If it's a blanket I haven't wrapped before, until I figure out the right length. So that's it. The jetpack, as some people call it. And this is nothing. That's probably 8 pounds or something like that. Typically, going out for a couple days with food, I'm under just under 15 pounds. One of the other things that I'll take with me sometimes, we talked about ground insulation. Conduction is a Thermarest pad. If I'm doing a fire and not a super shelter, just in a lean-to, this makes all the difference in the world. This is a 3/4 pad. You don't need full length. Just get really from your head down to below your hips. And then going minimalist as well, I tie this on the back here like that. I've got a PVC pipe with two 24-inch bow saw blades in it, and I'll make a buck saw or a bow saw for collecting firewood, building my shelter. Sometimes I'll make an elevated bed out of wood. But this is it, minimalist right here. And again, I've got a Shemagh in here that I could use to carry my gear as well. I could use an ultralight backpack, so if I didn't even want to take a coat, I can just use the wool blanket as that. Pretty minimalist. Appreciate your time, and thank you for checking out Blanket Tech Part 2.